Okay, American president is reiterating day by day that India is ready. India has promised, Indian Prime Minister has promised him that he would discontinue buying Russian crude oil. And this is what he had made a very bomb blasting, very thumping, or very high noise statement that India promised him that they would stop buying Russian crude oil. Russian crude oil are cheaper, around $4 per barrel it is cheaper. In 2023, Russian crude oil was up to $20 per barrel cheaper. Up to $20 per barrel cheaper. Now Russian crude oil is around 3 to 4 dollar per barrel. Means after transportation and everything, when it is reaching the Gujarat refinery, then it is coming as $4 per barrel cheaper. Earlier it was $20 per barrel cheaper. Anyway, India has given a statement to Donald Trump that they would stop buying Russian crude oil. Then it is more alike that whatever Donald Trump want to alienate means separate Russia from the world in a manner they have attacked on the Ukraine. So he would succeed in that. Now there are many caveats here. If you are forcing someone to not buy crude oil from some country, then you have to provide substitute. And United States is a, I believe right now, America is the largest producer of crude oil right now. This is what the report is. Around 12 million barrel per day United States they produce crude oil, and their consumption is I believe 15 to 16 million barrel per day. Rest of the crude oil they purchase from the Middle East. And then if they are forcing India not to buy crude oil from the Russia, then you have to provide the substitute in a way that whatever crude oil India would get in place of Russian crude oil, they should be getting in the $4 per barrel cheaper only. Then only you can stop someone. Otherwise, why someone will listen to you? That is a very big question because they have to buy at higher cost. Then the answer would come, then United States will give crude oil to India because United States had lot of crude oil, and whatever they are buying from the Russia around 1.6 they have reduced. News is coming that month by month the import of crude oil from Russia is reducing now as far as India is concerned. So India is obeying United States, but that gap, that replenishment has to come from United States. As per, if you force anyone to do the way you want, then you have to provide the substitute. Now, question is arising, if America wants to provide, if America provides crude oil to India, then will it be substitute from the Russian crude oil? The answer would be yes. Someone would immediately say yes, crude oil is crude oil. If United States provide crude oil to India at $4 per barrel cheaper than Middle East crude oil, then that is substitute for the Russia. Then they can say, if money is the only reason, then I am giving you crude oil. Our company will ship crude oil from United States to Indian port, and they will give it to you same price what Russia is giving. Can America say like that? Yeah, America can say like that theoretically, not practically. Why not practically? This is a very big question that is arising nowadays. America is shipping around zero point 0.4 million barrel per day to India. American crude oil companies, they are providing around 400,000 barrel per day to Indian refinery. Already it is coming. Whereas Russia is providing 1.6 million barrel crude oil per day to India. India import around 5.3 million barrel crude oil per day. Rest of the crude oil comes from the Middle East country like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, UAE. It comes from I believe Nigeria also. Okay, some come from, I don't know, I don't think from Venezuela because Venezuela is sanctioned country. So primarily these countries the crude oil comes from. Now question is arising, if United States give crude oil to India, then why India is not taking it rather than purchasing from Russia? America may be ready to give India at the same price what Russia is giving, and crude oil would reach the port of Gujarat at the same price through which Russian crude oil is going on. What is the problem with the American crude oil? Crude oil as a crude oil, they are not of the same country. crude oil are different. Very few people know that not all crude oil are same. Crude oil has variety. Crude oil has variety. There are many sections in which crude oil can be put. Especially crude oil are of two varieties. One is called sweet crude oil. One is called sour crude oil. Sour means it will smell like a rotten egg. The sour crude oil, if someone smell, it will smell like a rotten egg, and it will be thick, little thicker and black in color. That is called sour crude oil. And rotten egg smell comes because of the sulfur oxide, I believe. Sulfur. Sulfur is more in the crude oil, and that will smell like a rotten egg. Whereas sweet crude oil will really smell like a sweet, very nice, and its color will be light yellow and and it will smell nicely. Less sulfur will be there. That is called sweet crude oil. More sulfur, thicker, little thicker, and dark in color, and it smell like a rotten egg is called sour crude oil. Primarily, crude oil are divided into these two parts. There are other factors also. I believe uh, PIP factor and then acid factor, tin factor. There are other factors also that discriminate among the crude oil, but major factor is sweet and sour. How much sulfur are there in the crude oil through which crude oil is differentiated? Now, India is actually the refineries of India, the machine are different for different crude oil. If someone has a sweet crude oil, then for sweet crude oil machine is different. For sour crude oil machine is different, and then for other crude oil machine is different. The Indian refinery, the machine is primarily for the sour crude oil, means that smell like a rotten egg. All the machines are mainly largely for that only, because Middle East country, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, this country, the oil that comes from the earth, it has high sulfur and it smell like a rotten egg. They are black in color and thick. Okay, for that machine, and these machines are fortunately cheap in price, whereas processing the sweet crude oil is machinery is higher in price. And then that means that is the scenario. Anyway, the sour crude oil processing machine, they have to work more because they have to take out the sulfur from it. But whatever, machine cost is less, and this is how Indian refineries are. What about Russian crude oil? Russian crude oil is also like the Saudi Arabia crude oil only. Means Russian crude oil are coming to the Indian port and coming to the refinery, then there is no problem. They can process it. But American crude oil, primarily called WTI, West Texas Intermediate Crude Oil. These are American crude oil are primarily sweet crude oil. They don't have sulfur there. They are yellow in color, lightweight. They are called lightweight. Lightweight means they're lightweight. The way their color is, and the sour crude oil is called heavy. Heavy. I don't know. I won't say weight. Heavy crude oil, and this is called light crude oil. So American crude oil are light crude oil, and they need different kind of refinery. If Indian companies are purchasing 400,000 barrel per day from the America, then they have refinery for that. Now new refineries are coming. They are made for both. They can refine the light and heavy, means sweet and sour crude oil both, but they are costly. And generally, new refineries are buying those kind of refineries. But major refinery in India, they are made of processing sour crude oil only. Means America cannot replace Russia. That is the problem. Okay, technically, America, even if America want to give the oil to India at same price as Russia is giving, American company would ship their oil to the Gujarat port in India at the same price where the Russian crude oil are called Ural crude oil. Ural. American crude oil generally called WTI crude oil. So Ural crude oil, the way at whatever price they are shipping till the Gujarat port, and then they are giving to the Indian company. If America does like that, then still America cannot replace Russia, because oil quality is different and it needs different refinery. Only Middle East country can replace Russia. Then who will take care of the extra price that Middle East country would charge to the India? That is a big question that is going on. Very few people they know about this fact. Anyway, we will talk about the various kind of crude oil and what it is. Okay, if I see various kind of crude oil, then there are three ways crude oil are divided into. One is sweet and one is sour crude oil. This is the one way crude oil are differentiated. Sweet crude oil sulfur is less than 0.5%. 0.5% of the oil sulfur will be less than zero point 0.5. For for sour crude oil, that will be more than 0.5% of sulfur. Smell wise, it is mildly sweet and pleasant, and that is rotten egg due to hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide, it is a sulfur that will be there. Okay, refining process. Okay, it is less complex. Is sweet crude oil, but consider as processing units are costly, even though complex and require extra processing to remove the sulfur. Value high and low. Okay, so the value of the crude oil the crude oil that is coming out of the sweet crude oil, its price is high in the market. Obviously machinery all are costly, and low is for sour crude oil. Products like gasoline and high quality diesel comes out from the sweet crude oil. From sour crude oil, fuel oil, and the asphalt, I don't know what it is. Color, it is light yellow, and that is dark viscous, that we have discussed. Okay, now if I in United States, the main crude oil comes from the WTI is an organization called West Texas Intermediate. They do the marketing of the American crude oil, and that is they set the price also, and that is sweet crude oil. Anyway, there is another called evaporation. How fast crude oil would evaporate if someone expose it to air? Sweet crude oil would evaporate very fast, whereas sour crude oil means Middle East crude oil, they won't evaporate very fast. Anyway, they are viscous. One is called API. Okay, API. What is API? American American some index. I forgot to write it down. There is something called API index, and API index means API gravity. American something something. API gravity. API gravity is a measurement of some property of a crude oil. If API gravity is high, if API gravity is high or low, typically for the sweet oil, API gravity is high. For the sour oil, API gravity is low, typically. Okay, but this is another measurement of oil at all, and that measurement has some scientific measurement. API gravity. Sulfur is a one way through which the crude oil are being differentiated. This has more sulfur, less sulfur, sweet crude oil, high sulfur sour crude oil. Then based upon API gravity, less gravity, high gravity, whatsoever. Third measurement of the crude oil is tan called total acid count. How much acid is there in the crude oil, and that typically called KOH. I don't know what is the chemical name of KOH. Okay, so typically the tan of the sweet oil is low, acidity is low, and acidity in the sour crude oil from Middle East is high. API gravity is low in the sour crude oil, and tan, that is the total acid count, is more. Total acid count is less in the sweet crude oil. Anyway, 3.0 milligram of KOH per gram of crude oil is for the high tan. High is in sour crude oil generally, and 0.01 milligram KOH per gram in the low tan crude oil. So three measurement of any crude oil: sulfur value, API gravity, and tan, total acid count. Anyway, what are the different standard of crude oil? People would have seen in the newspaper WTI, Brent, OPEC. These are the measurement of crude oil. WTI is a measurement that is from the West Texas Intermediate. Means American oil are being their price are being estimated through WTI measurement standard. That is the American standard, someone can say. And there the API of the crude oil are generally 39.6%, 39.6 gravity, and they have 0.2 for sulfur. They are typically sweet crude oil. If someone is seeing in the newspaper WTI cost of the oil, then it is for sweet crude oil, typically from the American standard. One is Brent crude oil. Brent, what is the Brent price? Brent crude oil. They are especially Scottish Brent and Ninian system. This is another measurement style from the Scotland company, Brent and Ninian system. They have another system to measure the crude oil, and they are located. This company located in Northern Sea, Ireland. And for those crude oil, generally API index gravity is 38.3 and sulfur is 0.37%. That is also sweet only. Third standard is OPEC standard. OPEC is Organization of Petroleum Export Countries. Of primarily 7 countries are there in OPEC: Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Dubai, Indonesia, Venezuela, and Mexican Isthmus. 7 countries are there, and these are heavy and sour crude oil. So WTI index is for sweet crude oil from America. Brent is from the Scotland. One standard is there. That standard is from Scotland, again sweet, and from OPEC country, then it is heavy and sour, 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 rotten egg, S, okay, unpleasant. That is from the Middle East country. Okay, if I talk about the API index for the all the crude oil generally available in the world, then for Arab heavy crude oil or sour crude oil, the API index is 27.7. Mars blend crude oil, that is from the US Gulf Coast. So US have two crude oil, one is WTI and one is Mars blend, that is from United States Gulf Coast, and that is considered as sour crude oil. So from the Gulf Coast, United States has sour crude oil, where from the Texas primarily, around that only major crude oil well are there. Those are sweet crude oil, and that is called WTI. So America has two standards, WTI and Mars blend. One is Ural standard, that is from Russia. So Russian crude oil are called Ural crude oil, and that is medium sour, medium sour. So Russian crude oil are sour, and API index is 29.99. Arabian light, name of the standard is Arabian light, and it is medium light sour. API index is 32.8. Boscan, Venezuela. Venezuela oil is called. Venezuela has the highest crude oil deposition. Boscan, Venezuela oil. It is heavy and sour in taste, not pleasant. 10.1 API index. Okay, why American crude oil cannot come to the India? Because America has sweet crude oil, and Indian refinery primarily they are made for sour crude oil processing. Okay, so one thing is the quality of crude oil is incompatible with the Indian refinery. Other thing is the shipment is very shipment cost or transportation cost is high. America is very far from India. If someone transport from America, then shipment cost is high. Okay, and okay, they have to upgrade their refinery. Some private companies are putting refinery that is compatible with both kind of oil, sweet and sour. Anyway, USA provide around 400,000 barrel sweet oil to India per day. It is going to the refinery who can process sweet oil. So at the end, these are three quality of oil. Sulfur oil can be differentiated with the sulfur amount, API gravity, and TAN, total acid count. Okay, United States cannot replenish or cannot substitute with the Russian crude oil. So whatever Donald Trump is talking, actually it is falsifying India. They have to provide alternative. Then only it will be more meaningful. This is what I think so.